What's up, guys? So today we are going to be adjusting a pair of pants, and we're going to be adjusting Simplicity 9756 because I will be sewing this Friday live on YouTube, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Friday, June 27th. So I've been requested to make this video. It's kind of hard for me to do it because I kind of ramble and I confuse myself. So I feel like I'm confusing y'all too. But if y'all can take something from this, all the more merrier. So what you're going to need starting off is scissors because you're going to need to cut. You're going to need tape and a lot of it. You're going to need something to write with, whether it's a pen, marker, or a pencil. You're going to need your tape measure and a ruler. And I'm going to start off by explaining something first before we start getting into the measuring and everything. So today we are working with elastic waistbands. So these pants do not have an opening. So we have no opening on these pants. So they have to accommodate the widest part of your body. For me, it's going to be my hip. So my measurements that I'm going to be taking is just the hip and the inseam or the outseam. It's up to you on which one you want to do because, like, for some of our tall girlies, these pants usually don't fit, so you need to have this measurement so you can see if it fits. But most of these we're just going to be measuring for the widest part of your body, which will be the hip area where your stomach and your butt and your hip is at, because your elastic will take the pants in the waist down to your size. Now, if your pants have an opening, normally they come tapered like this. So you will have a smaller top and a larger hip area because that's how we're normally shaped, is we have a smaller waist and a larger hip area because we have to accommodate for if you have a stomach, if you have hips, or if you have a butt. So on these type of pants, you will need your waist, your hip, and your inseam or your outseam. So you need your outseam or your inseam measurements when you take your measurements. So since we are doing elastic waistband, we are only going to try to get these pants to accommodate my hips because I need the space in the room to fit the hips. The elastic is going to take everything down to fit the waist. So when it comes to measuring your waist, please make sure you measure where you want your pants to sit at. If you're doing a pants with opening, the elastic really doesn't matter. Make sure you try to get it to where your pants like to sit at. So if mine, I normally like have it sitting at my belly button. I don't like high-waisted pants because I do have a bigger stomach. So I don't like all of that squished into my pants and into the waistband area. So I like my pants to sit a little bit lower at the waistband area. I mean, at the belly button area. So since we're doing just regular straightforward elastic pants, we are doing straight pants, not tapered pants. So our pants should come even at the waist and even at the hip. But that isn't always the case when it comes to these. Like right now, I am learning that on these pants here, that it's not a straight pair of straight waist and hip area. This one is somewhat tapered, so it is off by 3/4 of an inch at the top, and it's like 15 here at the hip, and then 3/4 of an like 14 and 25 here at the waist area. So my whole thing is, I need, like, my hip, I'm going to use my measurements for all of this. My hip is a 58. These pants measure from edge to edge, including seam allowance, From edge to edge, we're going to measure from edge to edge on these pants. And you're going to measure on the waist and where you would assume would be the hip. I drew my grain line straight up so I can try to keep my hip line straight going across. So as you can see, this is the crotch area here, and going up some, normally around the notches is where the butt and the stomach will sit at. So try to keep your line. I kind of went off my notches on the front. The back was a little bit off. I kind of went down a little bit underneath the notches, but around that area is usually where the waist and where the hip and the butt and the stomach area will sit at. So if you can, draw your grain line straight up and then draw a line straight across so you can try to keep that area marked as your hip. So back to the measurements. My waist is a 58. I am working with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I am not doing the recommended 5/8 seam allowance that they have, since I am adjusting these pants and I will when I get ready to sew them. So I'm going to be doing all of my seam allowance at 5/8. At 1/2 inch. And remember, when you're adding on seam allowance, you have to think about each side of the pants. So the front has 4 seams. It will have like 4 seams. So it will have your side, your front, and then on the other side it will have your front crotch. So you have 2 front crotch and 2 side seams that you need to add seam allowance to, because you need to be able to sew it together and take that away from your total measurement of your garment. So if you're sticking with the 5/8, just remember that 2 sides is 1 1/4, 4 sides is 2 1/2. So if you're dealing with anything with 4 sides, add 2 1/2 inches. If you're dealing with 2 sides, it's 1 1/4. But I'm just going to make it easier for me and for you, and we're doing 1/2 inch because I'm sewing my pants up at 1/2 inch. All right, so we are working with the back. I went ahead and measured my waist, and I went ahead and measured my hip area. I got 15 inches up here, and I got 14 1/4 up here. That means I need to get this straight so I can have 15 up down here and 15 up here. Because I'm trying to make my pants 60 inches. I need them to accommodate 60 inches, which will give me my 58 to bring it up to my size, plus an additional 2 inches of ease. And ease just means the extra space in the pants. As you can see how like loose these are. They're not really, really loose, but I feel like 2 inches is good enough for me. If you only want to go with like 1 inch or 1/2 inch, then you will be just adding on that 1/2 inch to your overall total. So I need to bring the finished circumference of my pants when they're sewn together. I need to bring that up to a 60. So I'm going to just mark that down and try to, because when I get ready to divide everything, I need to make sure that I divide everything to equal up that 60. Then I have to think about my seam allowance. Since I am working with 1/2 inch seam allowance, I need to think that I have to add for the front up to 2 inches. So I need to add 2 inches, because remember, 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, and then the other front leg, I need to add 1/2 inch there and another 1/2 inch there. So that is a total of 2 inches that I'm going to be taking away from this. So I need to add it on to take it away so I can be back down to the 60. So I need to have it at a total end to end of the pattern 62 inches. So I need to divide that 62 inches by 4. and make sure each of my pattern pieces come out to that mark, to that measurement. So each of my pattern pieces need to be 17. Let me do the math. Hold on. Okay, so I need each of my pattern pieces to equal up to 16 inches. That will give me my 15 total. So it'll be 15, 15, 15, 15, which will give me my 60. And then my additional 2 inches for my seam allowance. I'm trying to remember so much stuff over here. So right now, this is equaling up to 14 1/4 at the top, but it's at 15 already here. So technically, I just need to add on my 1/2 inch, and I'll be fine with this, because remember, I needed to stay at 15 inches when I sew it up together. So I need to add on my seam allowance to take away from that seam allowance. So I need to just add on my I need to add on 1 inch, because I'm not adding seam allowance over here. I need to add I'm adding all of my seam allowance here, because I don't really like to change this area over here. I kind of go in and just add everything over here. So I need to add 1.5 inches over this area over here. Well, I need to add 1 inch, sorry, because I need to just add 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, but I'm gonna add that 1/2 inch over here, which will give me 1 inch over here. So from here to here, I should equal up to my 16. Uh, but I'm going to straighten this out first. So I'm going to just take my ruler, and remember, I got my pattern marked right here for my hip. So I'm just going to take my ruler at that mark here, and I'm just trying to keep everything straight. So let's see if you can get a better look at that. So you see how it comes off right here, but it's even right here. So all I need to do is come straight up. I'm making this straight. This line, I'm making this line here straight. All right, so I use my hip line. I put one of my ruler lines on top of that hip line to make sure that it's straight. That way I can make sure that this comes out as straight as I can get it. And then I'm just going to make it match up to the top over here. So now I need to remeasure this, because now this is a new piece. I need to measure what this is from here to here. And this gives me 15. This gives me 15. So now all I need to do is just make sure I add my inch onto this side, which now I should be equaling up to 16 inches. So the first thing that I did was make sure that this part here was straight, because it does taper in some. It does not come straight up. And like I said, all I did was because I drew my grain line straight across, and I used that grain line to make this line here, what I will assume is my hip area, straight across. And I took my ruler and I used my ruler to make sure that this ruler was going perpendicular to my grain line on my pattern piece. So I just took it wherever I can get. Let's turn you right. So you see, I just took it to where I can get it to go straight to come out this way. So now this is straight. This is a straight line now. So it comes straight up. This may look like it's straight, but like I said, it does curve in. It does kick in some here. So I just made sure that that was straight. And then I just remeasured, and I got my 15 here and my 15 here. And now I just need to add my inch onto here. So when I sew this up, I would technically, even though I added an inch over here, I would be only taking half an inch here. So that means I can take my half an inch from over here. So when this sews up, this should be, when I sew these two middle parts together, I should come up to a full 20, no, it should be 60, 30, 31. It should be 31 inches. And then I will sew it on the sides, and I'll be taking away that extra inch. So it should equal up to 30. I hope I'm not confusing y'all. Like, I'm really hoping I'm not confusing y'all. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. But the whole thing is to try to get the pattern straightened out for the elastic band, not for the if you need to do this, you do this also for your hip, for your waist measurement. If you kind of are about the same, like where my hip and where I like for my pants to sit at, they're almost around the same size. They're like, my waist is smaller, and then the area where I want my pants to sit at is bigger than that waist area, but it's almost as big, not quite, but almost as big as my hip. So I normally like to straighten out my pants first, my pattern first, and then adjust from there. So now I have what I need. So all I'm going to do is just cut this out. And I just need to cut up to the area where I got the extra piece at. And I don't need all of this extra paper underneath. So I will be just cutting that away. And I need to cut away at the waist. And I already added my inch over here for my, to make it a full 15 and a half, and then my other half an inch because we're taking it from over on this side here. The only thing different that I did was I took my 1 inch all the way down. I don't mind making these a little bit wider if I didn't want to touch the bottom of the pants, and just make sure that the hip and the waist part was fitting. I would have where my hip stops at, like this is my hip area here, this is the hip here, right here. I would have taken my pen and a curved ruler, or I would have tried to freehand it, and I would have drawn my line down and curved back into the pants right where the hip area is. So let's see if I can get this to go. So the hip area would have looked something like this here. So all I would have did was just drawn and curved. This is my hip. So I need to start going back into the pants over here. So the only thing that's widening on here is just up here and in here. So all of this is wider now, and the rest of the pants is fine. I don't need to change anything going down because they are wide leg pants and they fit just fine. But I don't mind my pants being just a touch more wider. So I'm okay with it being a little bit wider. So yeah, now this pattern piece is done. This is the back is done. I got my 16 inches that I needed for these pants to be even, and we're just going to recheck 16 here and 16 up here. So we got 16 total and 16 total here. So this pattern piece is good to go. If you need to make sure that you transfer your notches, just try to draw a line straight through all of your markings and your notches. Like, try to get as even to the middle as you can. It don't have to be perfect. And on your seam allowance, which mine is a 1/2 inch, and I already got that line drawn, I'm just going to draw my new markings. Because remember, all of your markings is on your, except for your notches, your dots and stuff are on your seam allowance, while your notches is on the edge of the pattern. So I'm just going halfway into the, as close as I can to being halfway, and I am creating new notches and marks. As you can see here. So that is my new notches for my pockets and my new dots for the pockets also. As for the length of the pants, if you want to try this first, this usually works best with looser fitting pants. With tighter fitting pants, I wouldn't tell you to do this, but you can put this pattern piece up to your body, and where you think it's going to fall at, you see where it's going to drop at on the floor. Mine is scraping the floor, so I don't need to add anything to this, but I'm special and I always add extra because I can take away instead of adding on. It's hard. It doesn't always look good to add on. So I always, to take away, to add on to the fabric. Like, if you cut your fabric too short, you have to add on to make it longer, and it don't always come out looking decent. So I like to add on to my pattern so I can take away from the fabric if I need to. So I'm going to add an inch onto these because they are fairly long, and I don't need them to be super, super, super long because they are loose, and loose pants kind of sit differently than tighter pants. When you put on tight pants, they take up space. Your body fills up space, which makes the pants shorter. So we're just going to add on just an inch to the bottom. I don't cut into the adjust line, like I said, because I don't like to make any permanent changes to my patterns. So I normally will do it this way. So I'm going up against my new line over here. I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to go and mark for my 1 inch. Making sure I draw my line over here too. Trying to keep everything nice and straight. And we're just going to cut that off. So now these pants have been adjusted. And we're going to do the same thing to the front. I don't have to do a lot to the front because the front is pretty much even. Like it's at 14 and a half, 14 and a half. It wasn't as bad as these pants. So I will just be adding everything onto the front part. But I'm glad that I started off with this pattern piece first, because then it shows you that what you need to do in case you do get that tapered pattern. Okay, so now my pattern has been adjusted. I got everything on this side. I didn't really add onto here because um, once you start adding all of this extra stuff in here, you start taking away space for your stomach and for your butt. Another thing that I like to do to my pants is I like to drop my crotch, because I don't like a high crotch. Like I don't like my crotch to be all up in my crevices. So I do like to drop or sometimes scoop out my pattern, which will look something like this here. And I normally don't cut on my pattern. I will do that on the actual fabric. So I will cut this as is, and then I will take a chalk and draw what I need to cut and scoop out. So this is called scooping, where I'm taking away from the crotch, but I'm not, like this line here, I'm not taking away from the I'm not dropping the crotch. I'm leaving the crotch alone, but I am scooping out to get more area for the butt and the stomach. Or I am dropping and scooping, which will look like this here. Or I am dropping, but I am coming back into here. So I'm not scooping, I'm just dropping. So I can not drop and scoop, drop and scoop, or drop and not scoop. So I will be dropping the I will be dropping the crotch on this by a half an inch. I'm just not going to do it on here, but I do need to extend my crotch, which is what I do like to do too when I don't like to scoop. So if I don't want to scoop, I will extend. And when I extend, I'm just going to tape this on. I'm going to extend by 1 inch, and we're going to come out 1 inch. So we just came out 1 inch, and I am just going to connect my crotch here. So all I did was just extend my crotch, and then I'm going to curve it back into my pants, because I don't need it to be like, I don't need all of this to be wider. I just needed this area, which is the crotch. I needed that because this is where it's going underneath your body. This is the seam that will be touching your like intimate parts. So I just needed to extend this some to widen up this space in here. So I will get my curved ruler, and I will curve that back into the pant leg. Because I really don't need all of this in here. Okay, so now my crotch is extended. Let me tape this up some more because I'm getting some gappage. Okay. So this is my new pattern piece. I've added on to the bottom. I added on to the side, and I added on to the top part and on the crotch. Now, if I need to do any additional change, like I said, scooping it out, I will do that on the actual fabric. So I will cut this as is, and I will just drop the crotch, not scooping it out, but I will draw my chalk, and then I will cut the fabric. I don't like to make changes to the pattern because I don't want to, I want it to stay somewhat in its original form. And it's harder to adjust for that when to bring it back to the original form once you cut it off. All right, so now we're about to do the other leg. Now let's do the waistband. So the waistband is the same thing. We need to bring the waistband up to a total of 62 inches. So that means this waistband needs to be 16 inches long. Because I don't have to worry about adding seam allowance anywhere else except for on the sides. So once I take the half an inch away, it'll give me 15 inches. So that'll give me my 30 inches. If you're not sure that the waistband will fit, you can do the waistband very, very at the last, and you can just take the waistband, sew up your front, because your front and your back should be just as should be equal. Sew up your front and your back, and you will take, like, sew up your front to your front and your back to your back. Do not attach them at the side, and open them up, and just make sure that your waistband fits. Just make sure your waistband fits from the edge. Like, match up your notches, because your notches shouldn't have moved. And my center front the center front is going to move some, so don't worry about the center front. Well, yeah, try to match up your center front. Your notches may not match up, so you may end up readjusting your notches. Sometimes that doesn't affect it, but I did change in here, so that does affect it. If I hadn't added on to the center, then my notches and all of this would have been fine. I would have been taking 5/8 though, and I'm not trying to do 5/8. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking my ruler and marking out half an inch on this center part of my pant leg. And we're going to put the center front with that and move this here. So just dealing with half of this, I know that my new marking should go about here to match up to the new pants. So that's the new marking. And I need to add on 2 inches to this waistband on just one side. I need to add 2 inches. So I need to add 2 inches here. That's one way you can try to get this, because we already worked out half. This is half of it. This is half of it. So I'm already at my seam allowance here because I marked out my 1/2 inch. This is my seam allowance here. This is my center line. There is no seam allowance here because we're cutting this on the fold or just cutting it as one whole singular piece. I did my marking here to match up with the marking here, and I see that I need to add in 2 inches to that. That will be your fastest way to go. So all I got to do is just add a piece of paper on here and add 2 inches onto the end of this, or you can measure out how this is. This is 27.5 total. I need to bring this to 30. So that's already me adding 2.5 inches onto this. And I needed to add that extra 1/2 inch. Extra inch. So that would have been 2.5 plus the inch would have been 3.5. So it would have taken me up to my 4, which is what I like. It would have given me, I need to add 4 inches total to this waistband because I need to add, remember from here, I needed to add 2 inches on this side. So that means I need to add 2 inches to this side too. So this is not too far off. This was 27.5. I need to bring it up to 30, which would have been an additional 2.5 inches. Like I said, 2.5 inches plus my additional 1 inch for my seam allowance, which is the 1/2 inch, which gave me 3.5 inches. I would have been off by 1/2 inch, but that is only because I added to this. It's the only reason why. It's because I added to that. But we're not adding to the seam allowance on this because there is no seam allowance in the middle. Because we're trying to get this to 62 or half of that, which is 16. So all I got to do is just now add, because we did it the quickest way, which was take away the seam allowance, put the center front at the seam allowance, remark my marking, and then I know I need to add 2 inches to this because I measured it with the ruler. So I'm going to add 2 inches on to the end of this on both ends. You want your waistband, if your waistband is bigger, that's fine because you can always cut your waistband to fit your pants. Normally I do my waistbands last because it's just easier to do it that way. Let's do it this way. So I normally do my waistbands last. That way, once my pants are sewn together, my front is sewn together to the front and the back is sewn together to the back. I know what I need to, how much I need to adjust for. Oh, I put that on wrong. Hold on. Okay, I just had to make sure I taped that right. So I went ahead and taped it and did my 2 inches, and then I am transferring all of my markings. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. And I need to fold this in half and transfer my other notch to the other side. That way I know it's going to be in the same place. We're still using the center front because that's not going to change. And I just need to make sure I transfer this notch here, that the new notch that we drew, onto this side. All right, so my new notch is on there, and I'm going to do my other 2 inches on this side here. And I just have one notch that I need to transfer, and that's it. And what we're going to do is put this back up against the pants and see if everything still matches up. And then we just got to adjust the front. And the front is more straightforward than the back because they are even. And we're just going to add everything to the hip. We're not going to touch the crotch or anything. Well, we will touch the crotch to extend it, but we won't touch it as far as the how I added the extra piece of paper at the top to widen the hip area. What I'm doing is just marking my seam allowance. That way I know, well, I don't need to do it on this side, but I'm mark it anyways. And then I'm marking my new notch. And I also need to do my stitch line for my waist tie for the drawstring. The whole point of doing these is just to, you have to make sure you measure the pattern piece, because that is how you're going to know if you need to adjust these or not. That's how you know if these going to fit. If you can't figure out like the finished garment size, measuring the pattern pieces will let you know, okay, yeah, this is within my size. This will fit me just fine. All right, so we're just going to fold this in half because we're only working with half of the pants. And putting it on that mark that we did for our seam allowance, which is 1/2 inch. So the center seam on the seam allowance line that we mark, mine is 1/2 inch. We are going on the edge. This is backwards. I need it this way. Oh no, that was right. Because I may have marked my mark in the wrong spot. But the waistband fits. It's a little, just a touch longer, not by much, probably about 1/4 inch. But I'm okay with that. Like I said, you can always adjust. And my notch matches up. So my notch matches up, and I am off probably about 1/4 inch on here. And I'm fine with that. I like for it to be bigger because I can always make it smaller. I can always go in and just adjust it and go ahead and cut that 1/4 inch off, but we're not going to do that. So this is the new waistband here. And I did my markings, my notches and everything. And I did my new marking here to make sure that it matches up on my pants. Like a lot of this stuff is stuff that you have to take in consideration when you're adjusting your pants. Okay, so now for the front, it's basically the same thing. We're adjusting for the largest part of your body that you have to take these pants over, which is for me, my hips. You may not need to adjust for hips because you may not have hips, so you may be fine. So we need to take this and make this a 16, and I'm gonna go ahead and, because we're already at 14 and a half, so I just need to make sure that this comes out to a full 16. So I will be adding 2.5 inches onto this pattern piece. I don't need to add it onto here, onto this part here, because this is straight. This is not tapered in, it is straight, and this is straight too. And it lets me know because it's 14 and a half up here and 14 and a half down here. So I'm just going to add 2.5 inches all the way down the side of these pants. If you only want it in the hips, then you would just add up to the hip area and curve back into the pants like we did the back. And then I will be doing the exact same thing. I will be doing an inch on the crotch to extend it. So we will get a wider opening for our butt and everything. So we're going to go from this is about 12 and a half opening at the waist and 10 for the hip area, and we're going to extend this out an inch more. And you see just how much more that opened that up. It went from, now we're at 16 and 13. So we basically open it up a good 3 inches. So it just made this part bigger without messing with any of this, you know, like cutting it open and then like spreading it. We're not messing with that. So we got more area in here for our butt and for our stomach. Now, if you only need to adjust for the stomach, I would tell you just extend the front crotch and not do the back crotch, leave the back alone. Or you can cut out 4 back pieces. So say you have a bigger stomach, and if you was to like turn your pants around and the butt fit just fine and the front fit just fine, like just because they marked this as the front don't mean that you have to have it, because some people may have a bigger stomach and a flatter butt. So this front may work well for your front, for your back, while the back may work fine for your front. So you can cut that out and, you know, try your pants on and see if it works that way, or just extend your crotch and leave the back alone. You can also take away from the crotch. So instead of cutting at the 28, you could have cut at the 20 on here, but you got to remember that this inseam still needs to match up. So you're going up. So if you cut at the 20 and the 20 is up here, but the back, the 28 is down here, this just made your inseam longer while this inseam is shorter. So when you get ready to sew these pants up together by the inseam, it's not going to match up. So you're going to have to extend your bottom by however much. So if you brought it up an inch, you may have to extend the bottom by an inch just to get that inseam to still match up. So like I said, a lot of this you have to take in consideration when you're adjusting your pattern pieces, because when you adjust one thing, you're gonna have to adjust something else. If you adjust the waistband on your pants, you're gonna have to adjust the waist on your pants, on your pant legs. You have to. If you make it smaller, you got to make that part smaller because it got to attach to it. If you make it larger, you got to make the other side, you got to make that larger too. If you adjust the crotch, you on one pant leg, you're going to have to adjust the inseam on the other one so it can fit. All right, so we're adding 2.5 inches all the way down on this one. We're going to extend the crotch, and that's pretty much it. And then once I finish extending this, I'm just going to put that waistband up to this to see how everything matches up. Now, my notches may not match up because remember, I'm not putting anything on here. Let's get the waistband out and see. We're going to mark 1/2 inch on this one just to see. So we marked our seam allowance on this side. Yeah, my notch is not going to match up, but this is a straightforward waistband. As long as I get my middle seams, like if I quarter it and make sure I get my center seams and my side seams to match up, I'm not worried about the notches on here. So the notches don't matter for me, but if they matter for you, just make sure that you try to make sure you mark your notches in a way that you can remember what is what. So you may have to put front at the top of this notch while putting your new notch right here. It's the new notch, and this will be the back. Or, well, this is the front, and this one is the back. So you may have to mark them this way if you need to. But I'm not going to do that because I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. All right, so I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, please comment below. I will try to answer them as best as I can. I try to do this as like informative as I can without going too much over the top because I know I like to explain a lot. But I really hope this helps somebody. And if you get stuck on something, just message me or send me a comment or whatever, and I will get back to you. All right, y'all. Bye.